Hello, I'm Lara Kocherson and this is Newsfeed, your dose of what people are talking about online. The final countdown to Election Day, an all-out sprint as America stands on the brink of a historic decision. Both sides have pushed every limit, every promise, every plea. And now, Kamala Harris is hoping her closing argument will seal the deal in a razor-tight race with Donald Trump. Standing where Trump told his supporters to fight like hell on January 6, Harris says the election is a choice between freedoms she'll protect and the chaos and division Trump will bring back.
America, this is not a candidate for president who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power.
The White House backdrop? Well, it was part of Harris's plan to make her presidency feel normal. But with over 50 million votes already cast, it's anyone's guess who'll be living there next year. Hours before Harris's last pitch, Donald Trump fired off a major broadside, slamming her campaign as one of hate and division. He claimed she has obliterated borders and decimated the middle class.
Kamala has embarrassed us. She doesn't have what it takes. Next Tuesday, you have to stand up and you have to tell Kamala that you've had enough. You're not going to take it anymore. Kamala, you're fired. Get out of here. You're fired.
Meanwhile, chaos hits the ballot boxes. Fires destroyed hundreds of ballots in the Pacific Northwest. Most ballots in a Portland drop box were unaffected, but a second fire in nearby Vancouver destroyed hundreds. Election officials suspect it's connected to a similar incident earlier this month in Vancouver. Devices at both scenes and the ballot box in Vancouver were marked with Free Gaza, sparking debate on whether it's activism or just plain disruption. Meanwhile, on social media, users continue to share ways to sabotage drop boxes, raising concerns that this might not be the last time we see election infrastructure under attack. The Council on American Islamic Relations says 3.5 million Muslim voters are casting their ballots in this election. That's a block big enough to tip the scales. So, where are their votes heading?
I've been talking to Muslim American voters in Dearborn. Muslims are usually strong Democratic voters, but this year a lot of them told me that they are undecided about who they're going to vote for. Many told me they're currently deciding between Jill Stein, the Green Party candidate, and Republican nominee Donald Trump, while others said that they voted for Biden in 2020, but they're voting for Trump this year because their concerns about the economy over the past 4 years, and they want to see more peace in the Middle East.
We as Muslims stand with President Trump because he promises peace. He promises peace, not war.
Some are really not sure who to choose because they're really important to them that the candidate they vote for does not support Israel, and they feel that both candidates support Israel, so a lot are voting for Jill Stein as well.
Harris or Trump?
Neither.
Why?
Well, neither of them are against the genocide and the apartheid happening over there overseas in Gaza right now. Jill Stein's the only one speaking out.
Jill Stein is the Green Party candidate running against Harris and Trump. Her fans call her a relentless fighter, embodying the American spirit of never giving up, no matter the odds. Along with Hillary Clinton, she's one of only a few women to have received over 1 million votes in a general election. But 2024 may be even more significant. Stein's popularity is rising, especially among Muslim voters in key swing states, giving her a shot to leave a real mark.
It's absolutely outrageous and unacceptable that we are looking at the torture and murder of children on an industrial scale. What's going on in Palestine is absolutely the destruction of human rights, the destruction of international law, and we say no, because as Gaza goes, we all go. This is not about being Muslim, this is not about being Christian, this is not about being Jewish, this is about being human and having human values and not being bludgeoned by the military-industrial complex into an endless war agenda.
As the U.S. presidential election approaches, Israel's atrocities in Gaza intensifies. Tel Aviv has declared the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, a terror group and will ban it from operating on Israeli soil. Laws passed by the Israeli parliament also strips UNRWA workers of all legal immunities and restricts Israelis from liaisoning with the agency. These laws come into effect in 3 months and will have dire consequences for Palestinians who live in Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. Many rely on UNRWA for all facets of their lives, from income, education, and healthcare. Israel's biggest allies, the US and UK, have called on Benjamin Netanyahu's government to reconsider. The UN chief Antonio Guterres warns the ban would have devastating consequences for Palestinians.
UNRWA was started more than 70 years ago, in the wake of the Nakba in 1948, when Israel was created and hundreds of thousands of Palestinian refugees were kicked out of their homes and banned from ever returning to their original towns and villages. Since it was established until today, UNRWA provides life-saving aid and essential services to Palestinian refugee communities. That includes healthcare, education, sanitation services, and jobs. The agency plays a critical role in keeping communities alive. Millions of Palestinians in the Gaza Strip rely on UNRWA for food, shelter, and medication. By banning UNRWA in the middle of a genocide, Israel is actively accelerating its ethnic cleansing campaign against Palestinians in Gaza. A population that is already starving is now going to have even less access to food and clean water. The implications of banning UNRWA won't just be felt in Gaza. It'll also be felt in East Jerusalem and the occupied West Bank, where there are dozens of Palestinian refugee camps and entire communities that depend on UNRWA. It'll impact the education of thousands of Palestinian students who go to UNRWA schools, and it'll impact thousands of Palestinian families who rely on UNRWA for healthcare services.
Israel has justified its decision, saying that UNRWA workers are colluding with Hamas. It claims that 19 aid workers took part in the Hamas attack on Israel on October 7 last year. Since Israel began dropping bombs, UNRWA schools and hospitals have been regularly targeted. Even its headquarters in Gaza has been struck. The UN says Israel's latest decision violates its obligations under international law. Now, the ban was passed in Israel's Knesset the same day as South Africa presented a massive dossier of forensic evidence to the International Court of Justice as proof of Israel's acts of genocide. It includes numerous statements and videos from Israeli officials calling for the removal of Palestinians in Gaza. And this next video shows Israeli soldiers boasting about the destruction in Gaza and plans to establish Jewish settlements.
בעזרת השם, ונקים פה יישוב חדש, ועכשיו תעברו לחבר'ה המבצעים, אני פה מפקח.
שעה טובה, הגענו לזמן הזה, לעשות פינוי-בינוי בעזה.
אחר כך תעברו לחלום.
כן, אחר כך נתראה להם את התחלת ההריסה, אחר כך הבינוי. בעזרת השם, יהיה פה ארץ ישראל שלנו.
South Africa says its submission shows there's an Israeli pattern to inflict widespread damage and death in Gaza. In more than a year, 43,000 Palestinians have been killed and tens of thousands more injured. Most of them are women and children. Pretoria argues that Tel Aviv's response to October 7, 2023 far outweighs Hamas's attacks. Nations from all corners of the world have called for Israeli guns to fall silent. Yet, Tel Aviv continues targeting those trapped in Gaza. Northern Gaza especially has seen renewed heavy attacks. On Tuesday, attacks on a crowded building in Beit Lahia killed at least 93 people. Gaza's Civil Defense Agency says 40 people were still missing. They're believed to be trapped under the rubble. Many of those who were killed, injured, or trapped are members of the same family. To Lebanon, where Israel has continued its sustained attacks targeting Hezbollah's operatives, infrastructure, and weapons. In more than a year, 2,700 people have been killed and 12,500 injured. Over 1 million are displaced. Naim Qassem, one of the founding members of Hezbollah, took over the reins on Tuesday after the previous leader Hassan Nasrallah was killed in an Israeli airstrike in Beirut in September. His appointment comes a day after Israel aerial raids pounded the ancient city of Tyre. Our correspondent Priyanka shares the mood on the ground and the extent of the Israeli aggression.
Monday afternoon, we have seen the Israeli military target the heart of the ancient city of Tyre with about 7 different airstrikes. This came after they already hit the area. They already hit Tyre earlier in the week, last Wednesday. About the same amount of airstrikes, though I will say that today felt much more intense. The strikes were very loud. They were very big, and I should say that it did appear that way, and it did sound as loud as they were, in part because we were only about 500 meters to a kilometer away from where these strikes were happening. Now, before the strikes did happen, 2 hours before, there was an evacuation order issued. But remember, here in Lebanon, people are increasingly not heeding to these evacuation orders, which I should also mention, people here in Lebanon do not call them evacuation orders. They call them forced displacement orders. There's a variety of reasons why Lebanese are choosing not to heed to these orders. Number one, for economic reasons. People really don't have the money to be able to take a hotel room or rent an apartment for several months at a time. There's an ongoing economic crisis in this country. We've now entered the 6th year of it. People don't have that disposable income, and they don't want to end up on the streets. The governmental shelters that the Lebanese government has put up are currently at capacity according to the UN. So people really don't have a place to go when these evacuation orders are issued. There's also the ideological reason. People do not want to have to leave their areas. They do not want to have to leave their land. In many cases, people, families have already done so before. Remember that southern Lebanon was under a 20-year occupation from Israel before. There was also the 2006 war that displaced a lot of people. So there's a variety of reasons that people are simply not evacuating from their homes right now. And I think increasingly it is the case that Lebanese do not believe that the Israelis are targeting anyone or any place in particular, but they are just trying to cause so much destruction so that after the war, a lot of the cities and towns and villages, many of the villages on the borders have been completely destroyed. They have been completely leveled. Lebanese believe that the Israelis simply do not want people to return to their villages after the war is finished, and that's why we are seeing the amount of destruction that we are seeing. Certainly the mood on the ground is one of deep despair and desperation. Lebanese desperately want a ceasefire. They desperately want to be able to return to their homes, or if they have not left their homes, they simply want to be able to live in their homes in peace.
This year, October festivities take a unique twist as Diwali and Halloween are on the same day. Halloween's spooky vibes collide with Diwali's vibrant celebration of good triumphing over evil. Some folks are getting creative, fusing these two occasions for a one-of-a-kind celebration. Halloween spirit revolves around pumpkins. From trendy pumpkin spicy lattes to homemade treats, they are the star of the show. They play a spectacular role in the celebration, whether you prefer going big or small. The classic allure of pumpkins never fades and continues to capture everyone's attention. People online love to show off their creativity through eerie pumpkin decorations. But have you ever wondered why carving pumpkins became a Halloween tradition?
The original pumpkin carving was actually turnip carving, and this can be traced back to ancient Ireland and Scotland and the legend of a man called Stingy Jack. Jack was a trickster, and he managed to trick and trap the devil 3 times before he was made to wander the earth a lost soul, with nothing but a burning piece of coal and a carved out turnip to light his way. On Samhain evening, which is the Celtic New Year and the precursor to our modern day Halloween, people could say that you could sometimes see Jack's ghost zigzagging across the windswept moors, a burning piece of coal lighting up the darkness. In Ireland and Scotland, it became tradition to carve out turnips and leave them at the entrances to homes on Samhain evening, which then became known as the jack-o'-lantern. And when Irish immigrants went to America, they brought with them many of the ancient customs from Samhain, including that of the jack-o'-lantern, which eventually evolved into the modern pumpkin carving tradition that we know today, as pumpkins were easier to carve and more readily accessible in the Americas. And this is why we carve pumpkins on Halloween.
And that's our show. Find our latest stuff on YouTube and do subscribe to our channel. See you soon.